Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Halton Hills housing update. So we, as anticipated, have definitely seen a shift this week, both in inventory levels rising and sales cooling off a bit. Yesterday's announcement that Doug Ford is going to be closing all non-essential businesses was definitely expected in my opinion. The list has since come out and real estate is deemed an essential service, so we are still technically up and running. The interesting thing though is our home inspectors, our appraisers, and our virtual tour companies would not be considered an essential service. So there is definitely going to be an impact because of those things. As we discussed last week, we had a ton of momentum going into this change. So there are a lot of people that bought a few weeks ago that need to sell their homes right now. And there are a lot of people that need to find a home right now. So it appears things are still moving along. It just seems a bit slower this week than what we were seeing a few weeks ago. So let's dive into the numbers so you can get an idea of how things have sort of shifted. So in Georgetown this week, we had 16 properties that sold. The surprising number to me is that 10 of those still sold over asking. So it definitely means people, when the right product is coming up, are still out there and looking at inventory. So the interesting thing in Georgetown this week is we had 33 new listings, which is a significant increase over what we've been seeing. Some weeks we've been seeing the sales outpace the listings, but we had quite a few more listings than sales this week. So I think what we're going to be seeing is those inventory levels pick up, which is going to cool down on the bidding wars. So in Acton this week, we had 2 solds and 4 new listings. So just like Georgetown, our new listings outpaced our sales. So if this continues to happen on a weekly basis, our inventory levels are going to be climbing if the buyers are kind of waiting to see what happens with all of this stuff going on. So we're even in Glen Williams. We had 1 sale and we had 1 new listing. Nothing happened in Limehouse at all. So rule this week, we had no sales, but we had 3 new listings. So a few weeks ago, I was pretty optimistic about what was happening in the rural market. We were some weeks seeing more sales than new listings, and that was, I think, driven because in town was so hot. But with in-town inventory picking up, that is going to definitely impact the rural market. So we're going to have to see how this plays out. So in terms of active listings, we're up this week to 123 active listings across Halton Hills. Georgetown has 75 active listings, which is definitely higher than the 50-ish we were seeing a few weeks ago. So the inventory is sort of changing right now. The last few weeks, we have had more than half of the properties for sale be over that $1 million mark. This week it dipped below that. I mean, it was almost half of the properties were still over that million mark, but we had 17 properties, which is a huge number, between 800,000 and $1 million. And I think that has something to do with, 3 weeks ago, a lot of people in that 800 to $1 million were driving that $1 million plus market. And those people still need to sell because they bought those homes. So again, this is just going to be really interesting how this all sort of pans out. And I still think there's a lot of people that need to be selling their homes. It's just going to be really interesting what buyers do with rates and with, our self-isolation and how much people are willing to really go out. In Acton, we have 17 active listings, which is just up a bit, but still pretty high for Acton. Glen Williams stayed the same at 7 active listings. Limehouse has 3 active listings. So the rule is the same at 21 active listings. So we have seen some properties suspend, but I definitely think these numbers are showing people that the real estate market at the moment is still needing to move. I think the impact is really going to be felt this week. At the start of last week, it was like people were taking it seriously, but we still had properties selling over asking and a lot of movement. With this new non-essential lockdown, essentially, I don't know how the market's going to respond to that. And as an agent, I'm just thinking about if I can't get a virtual tour, if my buyers can't have a home inspection, how people are going to react to that. So this is all still very much day to day. The fact that they are keeping land registry office open, lawyers are still functioning, and we're still out there is a good sign in the sense of if you had a house closing, like we're not going to have people that are homeless. I just think the real impact is going to be the businesses that support our businesses, like we talked about, the appraisers, the home inspectors, the virtual tour companies. So let's see what happens this week. Please listen to the government recommendations. If you have any questions about what's going on, feel free to reach out and I will update you if anything pertinent changes. If not, I'll see you next week for the Halton Hills housing update.